Is it happening?
Right. And I think there might be a way for me to also share this to my actual page. Let me see what I can do.
Is it on Flown and Grown or is it on
It's on Flow and Grow. So let me see.
Flown and Grown? So
Oh, here we are. Okay, let me just share. Oh, one more second, and then I will. Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, cool. So, hi, Susan. I'm so glad you're here. For those that don't recognize her face, this is Susan Verde, who is that, am I saying the last name right?
Yes, you got it right.
And she's a world famous children's book author who's very, very popular. Every time I lead a kids yoga training or go to a kids class where I'm doing yoga or mindfulness, people know who you are. You are a New York Times bestseller and my friend. And I'm really excited because I think, did we meet in the 2015 Kids Yoga National Kids Yoga
Yes.
Conference? How we're friends.
I think that's how we met.
So we've been friends for 5 years and we hang out in Long Island when I go there. So we get to do yoga together.
We practice together. We hang out together. It's really fun.
Yeah. And the funny thing is we were trying to post a selfie before this to like share that we didn't have any selfies because we just hang out like in our yoga clothes. So
because we're not, we're so above our egos at that point. Communicating with each other, no selfies, no nothing.
I'm gonna take a screenshot now. So this will be our first selfie. Ready? Smile. Okay, so now we have our first selfie. And you can see my daughter in the background. So I wanted to talk to you because you have just released a book and then you have a book coming out. You have a new series. So the I Am series, which everybody knows about. I am yoga, I am love, I am human. And seriously, like everybody I know knows these books. So you are prolific and people love you. And now you're coming out with I Am One, which is cool because it's a book on activism. And like what else could be more timely than a book on activism?
It's very interesting because, when you write books, the time from idea and then writing the story to the book being out in the world is minimum a year, right? So there's no way to predict what actually is going to be happening in the world when your book comes out. So it's funny, it's interesting and I mean, I guess very fortuitous, but in a sort of weird way that, things are so timely when books come out, which, I feel like when I write, I try to write things that are forever timely, but does happen to fall in a very specific time frame, weird place in the world.
But it's like you could feel it bubbling to the surface before, George Floyd and the whole world changed and COVID, but there was this underlying, and this is one thing I've noticed in the kids yoga and yoga world is there has been a strong component of social justice in the underbelly, but at the same time there's a strong critique against yoga as a white wealthy women
appropriation.
So it's very cool that you found a way to talk about activism in your writing for children, because I think that is like, no matter how messed up all of us as grown-ups are and how many times we have done microaggressions that we surely have. I mean, I can count the ones on my fingers and toes, right? But that there is an effort we're making to make it better with the kids. And like, that's why I do what I do, because I'm trying to heal my inner child by healing the children. So I love that this came out. And what called you to write it?
Well, I mean, I did feel like as I was interacting with kids, I mean, one of the really wonderful pieces of writing these books is being able to be in person with kids and really see their reactions, have conversations with them, see what they're struggling with, see what teachers are grappling with, and then sort of put that into the bigger world context. And I don't know, it just felt like there's so many things happening even before this pandemic that make all of us feel sort of helpless, or what can I do? And maybe I'm not doing enough, or maybe what I'm doing is too insignificant. And I think kids grapple with this along with adults. And so I just wanted them to know that they have a voice, they have power, and every little thing adds up to something
Right.
bigger.
They can do something collective if they,
Yeah.
and I do think as a child, there is this sense of like, I don't really have the capacity to start a project or, do something significant for others without that direction and help. And there's like, what type of example, and like like the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts is one of those organizations I can think of that really teaches that. But I can't think of very much if you're not like in a church that would help you think about activism in that way, unless you had activist parents. So it is cool to have some sense of giving back and purpose, like in the lens of a child. Like, how can what are the things I can be significant and do?
Right. And I think that's where, the yoga community comes in, and certainly teachers as well. I mean, I think there's always been this, like you said, there's always this sort of undercurrent, underbelly of social justice or activism or inclusion or representation or whatever it is. And I think kids can connect to yoga so well because it is movement. And as we know, like movement taps into learning, taps into connecting with your body, taps into self-expression, right? All of that. So if you can somehow connect these big issues into the framework of movement, of mindfulness, of whatever those, even the yamas and niyamas, like all of that and yoga, then I think it's more attainable. It's more easily accessible for kids and for adults.
Yeah, I think the lens of the yoga philosophy has always interested me. How there is this inherent need to be active, and have when you are clear about your path and you're clear about your trajectory. It's a lot of that the resolve that we do in yoga nidra, that this is who I am becoming. It's almost impossible not to take the steps to become that once you're aware of it, because you're like aligning your conscious and subconscious. And so I do think that becoming practiced in deep rest and like self-knowledge can lead to forms of activism and charity, even if that wasn't your, like, people come to yoga to like de-stress or be thin or whatever the adult reasons are, get fitness. And what they end up realizing is there's a lot more there than the fitness. And I think adults that fall into that and they're like, wow, I'm surprised how called I am to action. And that's why I think even just practitioners take trainings, and then in the training you learn about the philosophy, and then the philosophy really brings you into justice. And I think that's why a lot of the newer yoga schools have been in that realm, because people are being pulled in from their own practice, no matter how shallow the entry.
Right.
And not everybody's entry is that way, but I
No.
think of like, how do some people come to yoga, and a lot of them just want a flat belly or something. And it's great that even
I've given up on the flat belly thing.
Yeah.
No,
Oh yeah.
not happening.
No way. It's amazing how as I mature, my yoga practice has humbled and is so much less fancy.
Oh my gosh. Yes, completely.
Except for when I go to Yoga Mandala, which Susan and I practice at the same studio in Amagansett Square. Hey, Yoga Mandala, we love you. And the only time I do fancy yoga is when I'm in Jolene's class, because she's like, engage the bandha,
Yes.
rotate. Like, I'm like, how am I in this pose?
I feel like though every physical, like Jolie is amazing because every physical attunement, alignment, whatever, I don't know, taps into something deeper.
Yeah.
So I find that really interesting. Even if you think you're just going for the fitness, something is happening, right?
Yeah, she gets me strong in a way I didn't know. And I never would take the chance to be without good teachers, which is why I think having good teachers is just really important. Who is one of your important teachers?
Well, I mean, Jolie has been very important to me. And I currently, during this pandemic, my yoga practice has become so much, I mean, not more important, but really important to kind of keeping myself sane. And so I have a couple of teachers right now who I am just, I mean, like they are just influencing my life in so many ways, because especially now the yoga has just gone way beyond the physical practice. It's really just a moment for me to kind of connect, forget about all the chaos of the world and just be there for myself, and
Yeah.
like cultivate sort of an awareness and a love and a calm for myself. And so I have a couple of teachers, Alex Burst, Allison Burke. There's so many wonderful teachers out there. But I think, you know, uh, as I was getting into all of this, I had many wonderful adult teachers, but it's really the kids teachers that have, um, I think, shaped me and my practice the most, because that's where you get into the really deep developmental stuff. Like
Well, and
my
isn't it?
adult, you know what I mean? My adult yoga trainings are like, I
Yes,
mean, they've
I
been
totally know what you
amazing.
mean.
But yeah, I just feel like, we're really tapping into the trauma and who am I, and these bigger
Yeah.
questions that kids have.
That
And that,
we all have, but we don't. So this is my theory that if we treated adult yoga like children's yoga, we would all be better off. And I actually only teach that way. I teach everything through the same methodology. And so when I'm meeting with grown-ups, I actually treat them exactly the same way. I connect with every person, make sure they're all comfortable. I find out why they're here, what's important to them, who they are, who they're becoming. This always, every time I sit down with a new group, that's all happening before any learning about kids yoga. Because it's like, who are you? Why are you here? What do you
right,
need? And that way it's not a formulaic practice, but it's like super specific to that person and what they will be doing with kids. And when I work with kids too, it's like, who cares if you do 30 poses or six? What I care about is the full experience and that they're going to have an like a turn the flashlight in and look inside for a second, because kids are so
right,
concerned with what's going on outside of them by elementary age, and when they're little, like they don't know how to think about others. So we're helping them know themselves, think about others, and then not worry about others but concentrate on themselves. And this is really difficult to do because development asks them to worry about their peer group as they get older. So
right,
yes, peer group's important, but who are you and where are you going and how can we support that?
right. And I think that's, and that's what I try to do in my books, I'm hoping. But I think,
You definitely do.
well, so much of it is working out my own stuff, right? But I mean, even the
Yes.
books beyond the I Am series, like I just want kids to, if there were just a few really important takeaways, it would be like feeling seen, right? And seen as yourself, as who you
Yes.
truly are, not who you are in the context of this or compared to that, just you. And then learning that the most important thing is to love yourself. That is the only way you're going to be able to truly love anyone else, right? And RuPaul says it all the time. But I mean, it's true, because if you're hating yourself, you're not really able to share love with anyone else that's real and meaningful. And there's no reason not to like yourself. And there's no reason, I think when I was growing up, I don't know that I thought self-love or self-care was a thing that you were even allowed to consider.
Right.
Right?
Especially as a mom too.
Oh
Like
my
you
gosh.
become a parent and people ask you about your children and you become somebody's mom and the identity goes away and our roles become about others. And there's this big societal pressure to feel guilt around taking that, what all humans need, which is privacy and space and internal like introspection, and whether you're someone who needs to move or sit or both, like to find that place with. And if we're taught as children that that is important, I can see that carrying through each rites of passage as becoming a young adult and a parent and whatever. But I think we really lack that role model. I think your books obviously help create a model, right, where kids can see themselves. It's a very diverse depiction of children. There's a model for how to be in these different ways, whether it's through their practice of yoga or mindfulness or activism, that is important. And that's the type of, they need to see themselves in the possibility or else they never would consider that.
Right.
And that's actually, I'm doing this thing called Self-Care Saturday starting in September, which is a huge, I've been working very hard on it, a community service offering. It's a free email where I want people, adults like us and people who love kids, to embrace care as part of your new regimented schedule. And so looking at little pockets throughout your day where we can stop, you know, and whether it's reading one of your books or doing one of my exercises, it's just about taking a moment and finding how to check in and do things off autopilot in a way that feels healing and like it puts something back instead of takes away. Because I think people think, oh, adding more is going to be taking away. But when you slow down and do things that make you feel whole, that make you feel like yourself, it doesn't have to be yoga and mindfulness. That's just what we connect on, right? But it can be, it could be writing, it could be whatever you do. For Charlie, it's make believe, right? Or building. And so it's like, whatever your thing is, are you breaking away to do that? And also, are you encapsulating your activities, or is everything just pouring in? And that's like the chaos of like school and home being one now, is how do we have that separation for care? So I think with your books and my Self-Care Saturday and with all of these little things people can do to start to section off, compartmentalize, encapsulate, this is work, this is a meeting, take a break, have a breath. Now is
you have to like schedule it in. You really do, until it becomes something that is, you know, organic and natural. But it's so important.
Mine is literally in the calendar.
Yes.
Mine is exercise break.
Yeah. And you know, you make it clear to those around you, like, this is the time, this is the 15 minutes, the hour, the whatever it is that I am going to sit and meditate, lie in shavasana, do an activity that's solely for me. And also, what a great model for your kid, the kids in your life, right? We share all these things with them. Sometimes I do feel hypocritical because you know, I'm sharing all these tools and I'm trying to get everybody to take a break.
Right, all your kids having the benefit.
Right. And then when am I doing it? So you need to schedule it in for sure.
And I think we need to schedule it, and we also need to model it. And I think one thing I'm very good at is going into schools, going into courses, like teaching teachers, you know, I'm a teacher's teacher, I'm a kid's teacher, but in my own home. And it's funny because I'll say, like, I'll ask my daughter a question and my husband's like, no, you should say, give her a gentle command, like you always tell me. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forget to walk off sometimes. And so with her, I worried when she was born that I wasn't like I didn't do like baby yoga with her. And I was like, but I'm a baby yoga teacher. Like, what's wrong with me? But I realized that in modeling my own practice, like, she rolled out her mat, she rang the bell, she took a breath, like she was picking up on who I was to myself, for myself. She still chants Jaya Ganesha and like remembers these things that she oversaw and is now included in. But I think it's really hard for us to feel like we're doing enough also. And to like include our kids in our care means we also separately need our own care. And it's like, it's a whole big undertaking.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And I've also struggled with that. Like, you know, having my own practice for so long, since way before my children were born. And, you know, there was a period of time where I sort of taught them yoga, but then I backed off and I just, you know, because then they become resistant because they're trying to break free in their own way, you know, and it's like, you know, I'm just going to keep doing what I do and have them see what I do. And then, you know, sometimes you'll turn around and there they are in the corner, just taking some deep breaths. Like, you know, you're like, okay, they got it. Like, you know, but it's a whole balancing act of everything. And I know, and especially now, you know, when I'm so used to, right, like so many, everybody else in the world, working out of your house, having that time away. And that, you know, my kids are all teenagers now, and being in each other's space all the time is not the way it's supposed to be.
None of us have privacy.
Right?
None of us have certainty. A lot of us, like you and I included, are taking a financial hit. I think there's a lot of stress. People are sick. So it's like, to me, more important than ever that we stop and try to slow down and be well. And like, I can't wait to get your new book. I'm very excited to get it. And I'm also excited because you have these fairy tale books.
Oh yeah, my fairy
tale. With the three little pigs.
So here, actually, my computer's sitting on it, on the first one. So there you go. That's the first one in the series, the three
The three
little
little
yogis.
yogis and the
And
wolf who lost his breath.
and it's a fairy tale to help you feel better. So the wolf, he's supposed to huff and puff, right? But he's lost his huff and his puff. So now what is he going to do with all of those angry feelings he has? He has to find a better way to handle that. And these three little yogi piggies kind of help him deal with that.
I cannot wait to read that to Charlie. She's going to love that.
It was really fun to do. It was a lot more sort of narrative than I've done before. And the story structure was kind of already there, but like, how do you make it, fun and engaging and throw in those elements of yoga? And so it's been really fun.
Yeah.
And then the next one is the Tossy Turny Princess and the Pesky Pea, a fairy tale to help you sleep.
Oh, I am the
princess. You and I had talked about that. Remember the importance of sleep, and I was trying to figure out the sleep story.
Totally, yeah, because I have the bedtime, my yoga work, like mindful bedtime habits, and it's really interesting. I actually am very, very sensitive, so I relate to the Princess and the Pea because if something's bothering me, my skin, or if there's like a crumb in my bed,
yes. So well, you'll like it then. You'll relate to it.
I have to make like a sanctuary out of my bedtime ritual. That's why I did that book, and I can't wait to see yours because it is truly like how to get rest is like something we all stink at. So if we're people like you and me who this is our careers and we still stink at resting,
it's terrible. It's like
we need to like spell it out for the kids. Like,
and my kids now with the pandemic, like their schedules are so bizarre. They go to bed so late, they get up so late. There's like so I've been really, for myself, I'm like, okay, I can't control all of that. I'm going to let that go. And I'm just going to set my schedule. So I'm still going to get up early and get my stuff done. And then that creates space away from them.
So that's fine.
Yeah. So the rest is really key. It's really, and I've just, I have to try to maintain my own.
See you soon. I love you. She wanted to be part of the interview.
Of course. Why not? I have both of my dog and my cat. Every time I do an interview or I do yoga, they come sit. Yeah, they just sit with me.
Yeah, she loves to. So if I pull out my yoga mat, she will just climb on me, and it's almost like impossible to actually do the poses. If I sit on my exercise bike, it's like she sees me doing it and like tries to interfere. Yeah. Well, and I'm okay. I know you need love and attention. So unfortunately, like I think a million other parents, I am relying on screen time because I can't send her to daycare. I don't have a childcare solution. I'm running a business. Right. I also need to care for myself. So I think a lot of us are dealing with that. Like she is very good at self-entertaining and will, but at a certain point, if she notices I'm doing something really engaged, it's difficult for her because she's like, I want your attention. She doesn't have a lot of friends right now. So it's hard. And I think putting her in front of the screen has been the thing I do to try to
I think it's the same for so many people. I think, all that, we have to let all of that go and just be okay with it. It's just the way it is. And it's, what, in the end, it's not doing any damage.
I think as long as we are, like I realize she gets probably 10 books a day read to her. Like
you're doing all the other stuff, right? So like
we're trying and just making sure we have, toys that depict diverse children. And we've thrown away a lot of our like very white centric books and tried to have what we do as our focused learning be very quality. So, just a few nice toys, get rid of a lot of junk and just like reading things that are depicting meaningful human interaction and getting rid of a lot of the like junky rhymey books that are just like mommy hugs baby. And it's like, okay.
Yes, very like, yeah.
Stuck in that like world where everything's like mommies and daddies and babies. And I'm married to a gender non-conforming person. I've got, so it's just like, how do we, and of course we've earned this like moment of awakening where I listen to a lot of podcasts by Black women. And so I'm hearing over and over, white people are just waking up to this. It took the George Floyd, but we've been living this forever. So we've been completely aware of what's been going on. So it's true. I think that unfortunately it took a series of events for people who were not being directly affected to wake up to it.
Right.
But now,
And not just sit back and say, oh, well, this is great that everyone's aware of it. Okay. Like to then take action, right? That's
exactly. Well, that's why I'm excited about your activism book. And one of the people on work study, so I had it in my spring 95-hour online teacher training, one of the people became a full-time activist, and I actually converted her work study to a scholarship. She got a full scholarship because she spent 40 hours a week doing activism. She was completely worn out, and that was unpaid labor. And so like, it's hard for someone like me who doesn't have, I've lost all my school revenue, but like to afford that. But in her mind, her imperative, this is the only thing she can possibly do. She's worried about her son. And so I don't have that like burning fear for my child. And so I was like, you know what? It's one small thing I can do. And she was so grateful because it took away her feeling of like, I want to focus on this, but I'm owing somebody this, and let
right.
her really just go out and do it. And I want to do things like that as much as I can. Because, you know, it's a very labor intensive training because I'm giving feedback on every video that gets submitted. It's not like it's free for me to do
Right.
it.
Right.
I'm giving something because she's given so much, and I want to value that. And it's like, I don't really know how to talk to my daughter about things like that. So
but like you said, your actions are a model, right?
right.
So there's attunement, and there's things that she's getting from you that you don't have to. Yes, there will be a point when you need to have those conversations
Right.
actively and bring an awareness, but also the world is more aware. So her generation is going into a place where there are already going to be changes, and it's not that we can stop talking about these things or teaching these things,
Right. But it's going to be like
yeah.
normal.
And so you're doing your part, she's seeing that you're doing things actively. So and then when it's time, you can actually sit down and then have those conversations. But she'll probably already be like, I know, Mom, what are you talking
Yeah.
about? You guys were terrible.
She's like, so there's a lot of homelessness in Brooklyn. And so whenever we encounter somebody experiencing homelessness, we give them whatever we can, whether it's food or sanitizer or a couple dollars. And we talk to the people as human beings. And so she'll say to me all the time, we're very lucky we have a home. We're very lucky we have food. She is aware that we are lucky. I don't think she understands that that is privilege versus somebody who would be underprivileged or underserved, or, like living in an adversarial country with systemic issues of race and, all the socioeconomic barriers there are to being at peace, because they've said, like, I think that the study said like over $70,000, you don't feel more happy. But if you make around that much, you don't have to worry. You can like afford your home, and you can like, but think about what most people are earning is so much below that.
Yeah.
So much below that.
Yeah. No, it's
Myself included.
Yeah, myself included. Yeah, no, and it's definitely worrisome. No, but I mean, she's there recognizing things, recognizing when she is lucky, when she has more, and then those are the things that those are your jumping points. Those are your things that you can talk from, and you're not having to say, hey, you're lucky you have this. No, she's noticing, right?
Yeah.
So she's already ahead of the curve right there.
I wanted to ask you, so like in my experience, we'll talk about, okay, we have extra toys we don't need. Let's gather toys and clothes to donate. And she likes to gather, but there's a lot of anxiety about actually giving it away. And your kids are older. What is the process like when they are they comfortable parting with things, or do they have some of that hoarding, like I need more for me feeling?
Well, they definitely did have that. I mean, I think it's incredibly age appropriate to not be able to, let go of these things, because there isn't the complete understanding of where they're going or why exactly you're giving them up. And, but as they get older, I mean, I think it depends, but if you continue to do those things together, the older she gets, the more they're able to understand, and not only understand, but want to give up. I mean, my kids, when things get too small, or they recognize they're not using something, they are the first ones to say, where can we donate this? What can we do with this? How do we share this? Or
practice for them, that's much easier.
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot less. I mean, it's an interesting process to see them as they get older kind of turn into these, loving, giving humans, and you're like, whoa, when did this all happen? But yeah, they're because they're also more aware of what's going on in the world politically, economically. It's funny because I often wonder, like, I see them with their friends, and I think, there's a part of them it's not in denial. It's just like, I just want to be who I am and be with my friends. I don't want to talk about coronavirus. I don't want to talk about, any of this stuff going on. But they do talk about it. Like, my favorite thing is driving my kids in the car, because that's when they have these, like, it is on their minds, and they are talking about it, and they are doing their part, and they are starting, they start little movements together where they do good things, or altruistic things, or things that help. My kids at this point are a little frustrated they can't vote yet, because they recognize
I bet. Well, it's really interesting because I remember when Barack Obama was running for president for the first time, I did not know who his running mate was. I had no awareness. I was so politically unengaged that I didn't know. I just knew I was excited about Barack. I didn't have any idea. And like at this point, I'm like tapped into everything, and I know, like,
I know. More politically.
We also didn't have like the notifications and everything was a little bit different in 2008 than it is now in 2020, of course. But my lack of awareness was normal. Whereas now I would say that lack of awareness about politics and social problems, that like kids know. And I think
they know everything.
The technology and the way they,
the way they communicate with each other, and the communities they've found online. So my daughter is queer, and she was at a school that was not supporting her, and she changed schools, and she went through a period of terrible depression, and now she's got an online community, a school community. She's found these different ways to connect with people who she feels more comfortable being herself with, and that they have so many. I mean, yes, social media can be very damaging, and there's a lot of bad things that go on, but there are so many good ways to connect and to find people who are aware and want to have these conversations. I mean, I don't know. I think these kids I think they think that, like, the baby boomers, they would just like to see them all go bye-bye. They think we've everybody, I mean, I'm not a boomer, but everybody's messed everything up, and they really feel like they're going to do better, and they can do better, and they will do better.
I think that they can and they will, because the awareness of innovation and like disruption fields is normal. So they're seeing these models of like, okay, if you don't like the way something works, disrupt it. And so they actually understand that you can break complete systems, and they've watched it unfold throughout their lives. And so I do have a lot of hope that the young people
me too.
see a ticket. And I'm glad that your daughter, being queer and being young is very hard. And even having accepting parents still, like, it's great that she has a community and somewhere to turn to, and like, just, it's very hard. I grew up, like, I've always been like surrounded, like a lot of my friends growing up were like, we had the Gay Straight Alliance in my high school, and a lot of my friends were queer, so I joined it. And that was it. There was like 7 people in a whole high school, and there was no online. I mean, there were probably a few online groups back then, but I graduated high school in 2004. So we basically looked around the room at the 10 or 7 of us there, and we're like, okay, these are the people that accept you. Like, and that is a scary feeling in a grade of 250 in a school of 1,000. And so for her,
crazy. I know. I was so glad when she found and she changed schools, and she went into an environment that was, supportive. accepting, understanding, and I couldn't believe that the one she was in before wasn't that way. It
Yeah.
was very, I mean, I grew up, I mean, I'm going to age myself, but I grew up in the West Village in like the 70s and 80s. And, I didn't think like our friends, our family, people, everybody was everything. I didn't really think about it. I mean, my dad's um, assistant was gay and she got married, although you couldn't get married, but she had a
Right.
wedding and she and her wife honeymooned at our house in Long Island. And my mother's absolute best friend in the world was gay and died of AIDS. And I watched him go through all of that. And it's just like, it just, it just was. There was no love was love was love. Thankfully, that's how I grew up. But I know obviously that it's not that way in so many cases. And
Right.
so I guess it didn't even occur to me that this would happen to one of my kids, that there would be this period of rejection or isolation. I was just like, what the heck is that? And
Well, there's
so,
often an internalized homophobia, even if you have accepting parents, because you still feel like
of
I
course,
should have been different, or I'm supposed to like this or be like this.
yeah, it's just, it just, that's we are making progress and I am so grateful for that. Um, I think, obviously it all should have happened sooner, but it's happening.
I think everything happens when it's timely, and even when you can look back and say, oh, there were signs, or oh, whatever, it's like we just have to allow ourselves to be where we are. And I think we punish ourselves when we say, I should have, I should have, I should have, because you only know what you know now, and you can do the best you can now. And it's like
Yeah,
starting
agree.
again now versus wishing you had done something different, because you can always come to the accountability and say, like, I'm sorry if I dropped the ball on these things, but to like forgive yourself. And I'm sure your daughter is really grateful that I mean, she's a teenager, so I'm sure most of
Well,
it's
yeah, she
most of it's
does hate me half the time, but not because of that.
yeah,
Just
not
because, just
just
because,
because she's a teenager.
just because she's trying so hard to lie. I'm not like you at all. I'm not like you at all. Right?
Well, and when you're a teenager, you cannot imagine that adults understand.
Oh yeah, no.
And I think for the first time, we don't. And that's because none of us were isolated during the time of our lives that being with peers was the most important and defining thing. So people in high school and college age are losing out on such important rites of passage that we can't even fathom, because we were never locked in our houses. I used to drive out in blizzards to see my friends because I couldn't handle being home for a night. I
Of
was
course.
just so restless as a kid. I was so restless. We should have had yoga then.
Mhm.
Uh,
I know, I know. No, I was never home. I was never home.
was
And,
never.
you just leave. I didn't want to be home. No. And now they're home. And not only are they home, but, so during this whole time, I had one child who had just started, he's 16. He just started this like incredibly intense relationship. And and he had been going to boarding school in Florida. So he had to come home and his girlfriend was still in Florida. And it was like, navigating all this emotion and this
Oh,
drama and the intensity, and they couldn't be together, and they could, thankfully there's like FaceTime and whatever, but like,
gosh.
and I'm his mother, so I'm not really the one he wants to like talk it through with, but here we are.
Yeah, it sounds so tough. I think I'm in a lucky window. I feel a lot for the parents whose babies are in daycare with their teachers' mouths covered. They can't learn language. They can't understand the social cues from the mouth. My daughter is at a perfect age where she can self-entertain, and she's go with the flow and has enough cognition and comprehension to understand why. Whereas if you had a 1 or 2 year old, it would be absolutely tragic. And then the older, I think the harder, like by reading age. So I think there may be a window. And of course, the parents of 3, 4, and 5 year olds, we are struggling, but I think that it might be easier than like once you've hit like the academic rigor time where the schools are asking a lot of you, and I don't have to support my daughter's academia right now, which is
Yeah,
like
I was saying, when my kids, suddenly everything was remote, and I was like, wait a minute, isn't like the one perk of being an adult, like I don't have to relearn, geometry. I don't have to take it anymore. And now I'm taking it again because here they were sort of all
Right.
in this state of like, and I had to jump in and help everybody.
Uh,
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky, but I do feel bad for the teenagers who, like now my kids are, two of them are going to be juniors this year, and it's a big year, and look, what does that look like now? So
yeah,
but on the other hand, we have a roof over our heads,
right.
we have
Active
nature, we
internet.
have food,
Yeah.
so there are a million more significant things that we have to be grateful for. So that is key to remembering every day
Right.
when I'm like,
That change in perspective. It's so easy to count what you don't have. And when you literally count your blessings, and I think that there's a lot of evidence behind gratitude actually shifting mindset and being really powerful. Um, and it's one of those things that I actually find myself complaining more when I don't have a gratitude practice. And I
agreed.
spent 6 months. I did like a self-imposed writing assignment when I was trying to become a writer. And so I would spend 5 minutes, 6 days a week writing. And then sometimes I would write for longer. And the only rule was that I had to find a way to bring whatever I wrote. It was it was just basically a journal. I had to find a way to bring it back through the lens of gratitude, no matter what I was processing and working through. And it truly changed my mind. And for a couple of years, there were results. I spent 6 months, 5 minutes a day. And then sometime a few years later, I found myself in a really dark, complaining period. And I was like, look around you. Like, you've got everything you could possibly need, but you don't ever feel like it's enough. And no matter how much people show you signs of love, you feel an emptiness, and it's not anything anyone else can give you. And it was like, aha. And so many times that I feel like that imposter because I'm in that dark place or I've forgotten to practice. We don't have to feel that way, because as soon as we remember, we can follow the trail of crumbs back to the source, back to the practice. And you and I do these things with children. And I bet this happens to you, where you go, you do an event with kids, and then suddenly you feel better for weeks because you've taken your
Yes.
in and you're like,
Oh
kindness.
gosh, I remember. Yes, I'm in it. I'm in it now. I'm doing it. Yeah. And that's what I mean, that's one of the things I'm missing so much is that, and I'm sure you too, is that interaction with kids. There is like not a better feeling in the world than going in and working with kids, talking to kids, interacting with kids, and getting that, feedback and that collaboration and that conversation, and you've connected, right? And it just feels so good. And that is a very sad piece of all of this. I mean, thank goodness for Zoom and all of that. We can still do things, but it's just not the same as that.
It's not the same energy as a room full of 1,000 students
Yeah.
all excited for your visit. And like, I know a big part of your business model is also school visits and book tours, so it must be really hard. So everybody listening, go out and get Susan.
Pre-order.
Are they on? So what's the best way to get your books?
So, I mean, of course, more than anything, I want to support, independent bookstores, and they
Yeah,
all should be able to, your local
your
independent
local
bookstore
bookstore.
should be able to pre-order, you can put in your pre-order for I Am One, and then the other books, so hopefully they have in stock, or you can order them. But of course, you can always also go to Amazon and order there. Um, and the I Am One is available for pre-order.
Yeah.
So that it's coming out on September 15th, but every little bit helps. I think they're arranging for like a virtual tour.
Oh,
So
that would be amazing.
that'll be interesting. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work. I know there are some bookstores, there are some schools, so we'll see what that looks like. And as soon as I know, everybody else will know.
Well, I'll share it on all the Flow and Grow, social media. We're like such big fans, and
I
Uh,
mean, I'm a big fan of yours. You know that though. No, you're amazing. And I'm so grateful that you're out there doing this work. I mean, in whatever capacity you can do it, because it's really important. It
well,
really-
what you were saying about that connection, like I had to make that. So I became a registered children's yoga school a year ago, and I had not started doing my 95-hour course because I was so busy in the schools and doing my weekend trainings, and and then the world stopped, and literally I was begged by three different people that were taking my 18-hour course to do the foundations. They said, "You are a yoga school. We want to take the whole certification with you." And I said, "It's going to be watered down online. It's going to." I was wrong. I in the spring I launched the first course of the 95. We had the most family-like connection. It's 3 hours twice a week. Everyone's talking. It's truly a family.
It's
Are
so
you able to
good.
hear me? You're frozen. Oh
Yeah.
no, I can see.
No.
Okay. And then the summer cohort. Okay, so I have a second group now, and everybody as we started was like under the spell of despair, like teachers not knowing what's happening with the school year, home with their kids, so like their kids are missing events and they're just down. I spoke to one woman in particular who said, "I've never been more gray." And then the third week of the course, she's like, "This has given me hope. I have
Yeah.
something to focus on. And now I know exactly how I'm going to do my school year. I am so excited because I've got this hope and these tools that I've been wanting to do kids yoga forever and I never knew how to do it. And now I can." And so all of that doubt I had around like, would it be the same? Because I just want to say, like, I know you're worried about these online events not being the same as the energy. It will be different, but there is something really special about being live together, even if it's online, that you can't convey in a pre-recorded anything. And
Yeah.
people sitting down, talking to them, like it's amazing. And I feel so blessed to be able to see them over and over. And I bet like if you could figure out it's not your tour, it's like one-offs, it's this quick inspiration thing, but maybe you can have like a 5 series thing where people can sign up and their kids can all come and do the reading. Like I'm thinking like people are going to want to have repeated contact with you. Like they will, because you're going to make
I'm open to all of it because I mean, I love that. I think, I actually have one week-long virtual school visit set up for May,
wow,
which is far away, but it's going to be a whole week with the same school. So that,
very
I love
cool.
that idea of sort of not all the one-offs. Yeah, and really being able to connect. I mean, I'm hopeful that people will reach out. I talk to a lot of schools about mindfulness, about social emotional learning, about incorporating books, not just mine, but books into your, curriculum, like all of that. And so I'm hoping that in spite of not being able to be there in person, we do find ways to really connect. I mean, I hope so. I taught a course over the summer. It was for adults who wanted to be picture book writers, and it was 4 days, like 4 hours a day. And I was worried because I'm like, oh, we're online. What are we gonna, how is this gonna go? And it was amazing. It
Oh,
and it was so great. And everyone was so happy, first of all, to have something else to focus on.
yes.
And it felt so good to connect, even if we weren't in person. So I was really grateful for it. Yeah, it was great.
Well, because
You're
I
right.
so many people take my course and then they want to make kids books and they are like, "How do we do this?" And actually, I have written 7 kids books that are just sitting in my Google Drive. So I think like if you launch something like that, I would definitely put that in my newsletter. People would be really interested that are in
I mean,
my
it was
training.
great. We could definitely, it's definitely something to think about. I could do a little, 3, 4 day sort of workshop.
People would love it. I think people are looking for a way to express themselves, and just off the cuff here thinking like, wouldn't that be cool if you'd made one with for children?
Oh my gosh, it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Or
So
you should just like we need to have a whole other meeting.
I
So
know, I know. Well, so I think that that's a great idea, and I'm going to be back in Long Island in September, so we should do a distance hang. But in the meantime, I want to let everyone know the best ways to follow you. Obviously, we talked about ways to support you, but if you wanted to plug anything,
You're so nice.
so that we can, help you out and keep supporting you, because you have so much to the kids yoga. I mean, kids yoga industry is your biggest fan. Like, we are all so grateful.
You guys are my people, you know. I mean, everything I do with you guys in mind, because you're what brought me to this place. You know what I mean? So I'm forever grateful. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Let's see, plug away. Okay, well, you can find me on Facebook. It's Susan Verde. You can find me on Instagram. I'm mostly an Instagram user. So it's at Susan Verde. You could hear my teenager slamming the door probably, right? There's a lot of that goes on. I think they don't even realize it anymore. At Susan Verde on Instagram. And that's where I post a lot of my events and, like, you know, new books and things like that. I'm also on Twitter at Susan Verde. And then you can go to my website, which is susanverde.com. And you can email me from there. I answer all my emails. So, you know, whatever you need, whatever you have questions about, we can talk about virtual visits, or if you have any questions about implementing things in your classroom or whatever it is. And I guess that's it. Those are all the places.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll do my little plug too. I've got the Self-Care Saturday, starts September 5th. I'm gonna have you share it with everyone you know. It's for parents, teachers, anyone who loves kids that needs a little bit of, it's gonna be blogs. So you get an email, it leads you to a blog with a free download every week. It's a worksheet or something with instructions for how you do a very simple activity at different times throughout the day to just feel better and to share that with kids. And I'm working very, very hard on that. So it's my community service offering. And then I am starting the next kids yoga teacher training 95-hour RCYT course October 1st. And before that, I've still got like the business of kids yoga and integrating mindfulness into the school day and a few other modules from the summer course. So anyone can hop in to those individual courses. And I would be so grateful to have any more people that are into yoga and mindfulness and children to be in. Just the more people on board, the better, because we truly need, like in every classroom, in every home, we need all hands on deck. And I was trying to save the world by myself. I was going to a million schools, and I just like, I had literally thousands of students. I knew all their names. I was like doing it all. And I realized I like to work with kids, but I have to keep it limited because my true calling is the teacher's teacher. So if you are called to, please, if you go to my website, flowandgrowkidsyoga.com, I always answer the emails. And you're looking at this on my social, so you already know our Facebook, and my professional Facebook is at Flow and Grow Yoga. So Susan, thank you so much. I Am One comes out, what's the date?
September 15th, but it's ready for order now.
Pre-sale, we want to get up those numbers. So pre-sale, buy 5 copies, one for you and one for all your kids and neighbors. And we will hopefully chat with you again soon when your next book comes out.
No, oh yeah, and be sure to follow me on Instagram, because I think we're going to do a couple of giveaways too. Ooh. So yeah, look out.
Oh, I will do a giveaway with you sometime too.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Oh, we have so much to plan.
Yeah. Okay, love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
You're so welcome.
Bye.